You should feel good about Desmond Ridder going into the season, so says my guest, who will also join me to compare and contrast our 53-man roster projections for the Falcons going into their preseason finale.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. We're helping you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, guys, you know me. I'm Aaron Freeman, your very humble host here. And, of course, you may also know me as Sirius Black. You may also know me as Mr. Drew. My friends call me Negative Nancy, but you can call me Mr. Drew. But you can become one of my friends by becoming an everydayer of this illustrious podcast. And all you got to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today's episode, I am joined by Kevin Knight of the Falcoholic, as well as the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast, and we will be discussing why he feels good about Desmond Ridder going into week one based off of his performance against the Cincinnati Bengals last Friday night. We'll talk a little bit about this upcoming Thursday night matchup in the preseason finale against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we'll talk about sort of where we think the 53-man roster as well as the 16-man practice squad stands, and we will compare and contrast that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. So without further ado, let's jump into that conversation with Kevin Knight right now. Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, and I am joined by another illustrious guest. He is none other than Kevin Knight of the Falcoholic. You also can check him out on Falcoholic Live on YouTube, as well as the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast, part of the Believe Podcast Network. And Kevin, of course, is here with us because he is the only person who can out-nerd me as far as the roster goes. That's why he breaks down and projects the roster over at the Falcoholic. And we'll have him on here giving sort of his penultimate, probably, there'll probably be one more update, I'm guessing, Kevin, after the Steeler game, potentially, given that we have a couple of days between then and final cuts. But we'll break down sort of his second to last roster projection on today's, and we'll compare and contrast it with mine. But before we get into all of that, Kevin, I do want to welcome you to the show, but I want to sort of lob that initial question. What were your thoughts on seeing those starters last Friday night against the Cincinnati Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, I you have to like what you see from the offense. I mean, it was a total buzzkill how that drive ended. That was pretty frustrating. But I think if you were looking to feel better about Desmond Ridder going into the season, I mean, I think that's about as well as you could have hoped for his one drive to go. I mean, sort of diced up the Bengals secondary, and it wasn't perfect. I mean, there were some throws that were a little bit behind, and Drake London, made that magnificent catch. And then, of course, the pick happens, which not really his fault. So, you would like to see them punch it in there. But other than that, I mean, that's about as well as you could hope. I mean, I think everybody who caught the ball made a great play after the catch. It seemed like Mac Hollins made a great play after the catch. Kyle Pitts picked up some yards. Bijan obviously just is Bijan. So, yeah, I mean, you love that. I mean, I think the defense was probably a little bit shakier than some people were thinking. But, I mean, even then, it's not like they got completely carved up, but you'd probably be hoping for better against Mike White. But again, super vanilla defensive scheme. I mean, barely any blitzing. We know the Falcons are going to blitz the crap out of people, but they're not, man, who am I thinking of? The guy that did it to the Falcons in that one preseason. The one.
Greg Williams?
Yeah. They're not quite Greg Williams, where they're just like, okay, we're going to zero blitz this third string quarterback in the preseason. Welcome to the NFL, buddy. So yeah, defense probably a little bit disappointing. It was nice to see Calais Campbell out there. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately you come away more focused on the offense and feeling pretty good about the Falcons going into the season with Desmond Ridder, because I don't think we're going to see him again until week one.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. Do you expect to see any of these starters on Thursday night against the Steelers?
No, I don't think so. I know Arthur Smith in the past has been a guy that's been more willing to play starters. This year didn't even play second stringers really in the first game. So I wonder if now that they have really strong playoff aspirations that they're like, okay, we're not going to play these guys in the preseason. So yeah, I maybe some players will mix in, but I mean, in terms of like your big name guys, I doubt it. I doubt we'll see anybody on Thursday. So just, more taking them to the Woodside talk on the Falcoholic Live, watch party on Thursday night.
Absolutely. So guys, check it out. Yeah, I'll give you the chance to plug that right now, Kevin. Go ahead and plug
7:30 p.m. Not a play-by-play show. Definitely not a play-by-play show in any way, but a watch party for that game. And yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Still putting together the guest list for that, but it'll be a good time. We'll probably spend a lot of time talking about Logan Woodside again, which, to be fair to him, not, pretty entertaining for the 3 quarters of that first show that we did that, you can't find anymore for reasons. So hey, if Woodside plays like that again, then it'll be just okay on Thursday night.
Yeah, and he put together a really great drive at the end of that game. I was ready to do my show of talking about the Falcons losing, and then all of a sudden, Logan Woodside, wants to play these late game heroics. So I've said it before, like he's basically probably the best third string preseason quarterback I can recall the Falcons having in a long time. I think he even is outdueling the legacy of Kurt Benkert, everybody's favorite third string quarterback. So I feel like Logan Woodside deserves his own wing in the Falcons Ring of Honor for that very reason.
Yes, the preseason Ring of Honor. It's a very storied, illustrious group. So
yeah, definitely. So we will leave that conversation aside here with Kevin Knight, and we will get into our dueling 53-man roster projections. And yes, guys, we do have graphics, so continue checking us out on YouTube, of course, so that you can see those graphics. But for the audio listeners, we will I will at least try to explain what those people are seeing. But that's just another excuse to subscribe and like on YouTube as well. So we will get into all of that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Bird Dogs are going to help you look good all summer, along with their stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through thigh and leg day to give you that truly sculpted look so that every day looks like leg day. They fit way better than regular shorts. Bird Dogs invented this cloud knit fabric that looks like khaki but stretches to fit way slimmer so that you don't have to sacrifice movement. And they also use an anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Again, every day at the gym with Bird Dogs is going to feel like leg day. Or maybe you don't find yourself going to the gym as much like me, and you find yourself, finding your Bird Dogs coming in handy earlier this summer when you were at the beach and you forgot your swim trunks. They work just as well. However, whenever you want to wear them, try them for yourself by going to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL, and you'll get a free tech hat with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL for a free tech hat. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. So continuing today's Locked On Falcons, I think I have all the buttons pressed. Okay, yes, I think we're doing okay. So, all right, now our graphics are ready to go. We got to level up, Kevin. You got to get on my
fully operational battle station here.
So as you guys are watching on your YouTube screens, we are breaking down, the Falcons 53-man roster plus their 16 players on the practice squad in 4 sort of basic slides and segments. And so on this first one, we are looking at the quarterback, running back, fullback, and wide receiver position. And for the most part, when we look at this overall 53, there's only a couple of differences between mine and Kevin's, sort of showing our groupthink in this regard. As far as these positions, these offensive skill positions, only one major difference, but we have the same 3 quarterbacks in Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke, and Logan Woodside. The difference is I have Woodside, that illustrious preseason superstar, on my Falcons practice squad, while Kevin is projecting him to make the Falcons roster. We have the same 4 running backs, but that is Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Cordero Patterson, and Godwin Igwebuike, except for now Kevin has Igwebuike on the Falcons practice squad rather than the roster like I have. Our major difference comes at the fullback position. We both, of course, have Keith Smith making the Falcons roster, but Kevin does have Clint Rakovich on his practice squad. And I do not have Clint Rakovich on my practice squad. It was so eating me up inside to leave that second fullback off of this projection. As you guys know that we are Locked On Fullbacks here on this illustrious podcast. We do have the same top 4 wide receivers in Drake London, Mac Hollins, Kadero Hodge, and Scotty Miller. We disagree on who that 5th receiver is. I have Penny Hart making it as that 5th receiver. Kevin has Josh Ali making it as that 5th receiver. However, Kevin has Penny Hart on his practice squad. I have Josh Ali on our practice squad. And we both agree that JJ Arcega-Whiteside and Xavier Malone also stick at wide receiver on that practice squad. So, Kevin, I will give you the floor. Anything jump out to you as you're looking at these 4 positions that you want to discuss?
No, I mean, there's nothing major here. I mean, I think that the 3rd quarterback rule is what makes me put Logan Woodside on the roster. And the fact that he's played well, like I think he would be at risk of being pulled off the squad, because I don't know if you've seen other teams' preseason games, and I hope you haven't, but there's a lot of bad quarterback play out there when after the starter comes out, and sometimes, the second stringer even. So Logan Woodside looking competent. I mean, someone might be interested in that. I think the Falcons haven't even bothered to have a 4th quarterback. Most teams do have a 4th quarterback in camp. And I think that shows that they have complete and total confidence in Woodside. They want him to be their 3rd quarterback, and I think that leads to them probably holding on to him. But, we'll see. It wouldn't shock me if they don't keep him, but I wonder if that new rule sort of pushes them towards it. It pained me to leave Godwin Igwebuike off because I think he's played really well. But because I'm keeping the 3rd quarterback, you have to cut somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I cut there because I feel like at running back, I like Godwin Igwebuike. I'd be upset if someone signed him off the practice squad, but the way that running back is right now, I mean, you could go find somebody else if you had to. And the Falcons seem to just be able to find literally they're kind of both ends of the running back debate at once. They're like, we're going to go spend a top 10 pick on a running back, but also we can take any running back off the street and turn him into a good running back because of Arthur Smith's offense. So it's funny that they're kind of doing both of those things. But if they were to lose Igwebuike, I think it would be okay, even though I wouldn't like it. I'm shocked that you didn't have Clint Rakovich on your practice squad. I'm insulted, honestly, for him. But they kept John Rain on the practice squad pretty much all of last season. They even brought him back to camp for a while. I think they just like to have that backup fullback. So is it the best use of a practice squad spot? Maybe not, but I don't think they really care at that point. But and at wide receiver, I actually had Penny Hart written in there up until this last preseason game. I've been sort of updating this, over the last couple of weeks. I think Penny Hart's injury, we'll see if there's anything with that. Maybe there's not. But either way, I think they really want Ali to win the job because of his connection with Ridder. I think he's, size, speed, all that stuff wise. I think better, on offense. I think Penny Hart's better on special teams. So it really just depends what they go with there. But that 5th receiver is probably going to be inactive. So it's well, how key, does he have to be on special teams? Obviously my heart wants Sam Malone, but I don't know that they'll actually put him on the roster. So
yeah, no, I think all your reasoning makes absolute sense. And basically for me, I'm sort of projecting a little bit with why I put Igwebuike on the roster, just because I'm not 100% sure Cordero Patterson is going to be healthy week 1. And so it's probably a situation where Igwebuike is on the roster for week 1, and then they do what you protected him and move him to the practice squad. And it's kind of the same thing with Penny Hart. That's kind of why that broke the tie between me and Josh Ali, because I was like, well, I don't know what Kadero Hodge's status is going to be for week 1. And we know Hodge, even though he's a contributor on offense, he's also a valuable piece on special teams. So that kind of pushed me towards Penny Hart, as you said, who I think is probably the little bit more valuable special teams contributor there. And obviously he's dealing with a concussion. So that's going to be something that, potentially is going to have to clear up between now and next Tuesday when those final cuts happen. So I think you're pretty spot on in your analysis. And I think it'll be pretty close. It's haggling over a couple of pieces. Let's move on to the tight end and offensive line positions. Again, only slight differences in this group. One major difference on the roster when it comes to the offensive line. But starting with the tight ends, I have 4 tight ends making it on my 53-man roster. Kevin has 5. Those 4 are Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith, Parker Hesse, Michael Pruitt. Kevin has those same 4, but he also has John Fitzpatrick on his roster as the 5th tight end. I have Fitzpatrick making it at the practice squad. Kevin also as a 6th tight end because he knows Arthur Smith so well that he wants to maximize all those tight ends on the roster by putting Tucker Fisk on his practice squad projection at the tight end position. We both agree that 8 offensive linemen will stick. We just disagree who that 8th offensive lineman will be. But those top 7 that we do agree on are Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, Drew Dahlman, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry, Josh Miles, and Ryan Newsel. Our disagreement is Kevin has Jalen Mayfield as that 8th offensive lineman. I have Kyle Hinton as that 8th offensive lineman. I do have Jalen Mayfield making it on the practice squad, and we both have Tyler Vrabel and Jovan Gwynn making the practice squad. So once again, Kevin, anything that you want to take a deeper look on at these 2 positions?
We all know that Arthur Smith has to collect all the tight ends like Infinity Stones. So, I think he needs as many as possible. And like you could see in the preseason, I think that you could count on one hand the number of snaps without at least 2 tight ends on the field. There were some 3 tight end sets. They need a lot of tight ends, clearly. With Michael Pruitt coming back, the need for Fitzpatrick isn't quite as high because without that, it was like, well, you only really have one blocker and Parker Hesse and Kyle Pitts, I think is like a serviceable blocking tight end now, but he's still not the guy you want in there on like goal line. I mean, you probably still want him in there on goal line just to like leak it. Like on that, you saw that Ridder run in the preseason where, Kyle Pitts was basically a decoy on motion. And that helped spring Ridder for a nice run there, getting in the red zone. But like, if you're actually looking for the most powerful blockers, it's going to be Hesse and Pruitt. And I think Fitzpatrick, just because of his status as a draft pick, I think he's got some untapped potential as a receiver. I think there's a risk you lose him on the practice squad. And they kept 5 tight ends for a long time last year. Obviously, Felipe Frank's on season-ending IR, so he's not going to be taking that 5th spot. So Arthur Smith will make room for somebody else. And then, on the offensive line, I don't feel good about it with Jalen Mayfield there. Not, no offense to Jalen Mayfield, obviously. I think Adnan said Jalen Mayfield's dad likes to watch all these shows. So, love Jalen Mayfield, the person. Every time I've interacted with him, he's been very nice.
I'm pretty sure he's not watching Locked On Falcons.
Yeah. Okay.
We spend a lot of time here on this podcast.
Slandering him. Yes, I feel like we slandered him too, but he was very nice to Adnan. So maybe he's just, understands the slander. But yeah, I think Jalen Mayfield's probably best suited for the squad. But at this stage, it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't have any argument with Kyle Hinton making it there. I have no strong opinions with anyone past Ryan Newsel at this point. And in fact, I think this 8th spot or 9th spot will be someone they sign. I think they're going to sign somebody. I would be shocked if they don't add another offensive lineman. I think Josh Miles probably better than most people think. Like, I think he's a serviceable swing tackle, but I would still feel better with like Eric Fisher or Dalton Reisner or somebody. Like, you have the cap space, go out and get a veteran offensive lineman to be your primary backup there. That someone, and like, I'm totally fine with Ryan Newsel. I think he's actually pretty good. It's just everybody else is kind of like, I'd rather have Josh Miles as like the 8th offensive lineman than like the 6th offensive lineman. But yeah, that type of, that thing is probably relevant to like a tiny subsection of Falcons fans that are probably, they're very excited to hear my takes on 6th versus 8th offensive lineman, but the average person probably not that invested.
Yeah. I think you're right. It feels like if I was going to bet any amount of money, and it wouldn't be betting on the Falcons to make a Corey Davis trade. It would be betting on the Falcons to make a change on this offensive line. And I feel like this is the one position group that is most ripe for the Falcons to bring in some outside help between now and the start of the regular season. We've seen them make those moves the last couple of years. You had Wayne Gallman in 21. You had Chuma Edoga last year in 22. And I'm probably blanking on one other player that they probably brought in as well. So, yeah, I think there's a pretty safe bet that you will see some shuffling on this offensive line, and probably the 8 guys that we have. I think I feel confident saying Newsel will be one of those backups, but I am not particularly confident in saying Josh Miles or Kyle Hinton or Jalen Mayfield or any of those guys are going to stick. So we'll see how that goes. We will continue this conversation, breaking down our dueling 53-man roster projections by getting into the defense and, of course, the all-important special teams, and we'll break that down as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Now, we're talking about the Falcons 53-man roster, and they're looking to hire the right people for this upcoming season. And you may also be looking to hire the right people for your small business, or maybe you're a hiring manager. And the same is true that you need to surround yourself with the right people. And it's easier for you because you don't have to sweat in the Georgia heat, because you can just go to LinkedIn Jobs, where you can quickly attract and hire qualified candidates by matching with the people with the right skills, values, and experiences that help you achieve your goals. You can put your free job post in minutes in front of over 800 million member profiles. To find those qualified candidates with LinkedIn Jobs, it's easy to screen and rate applicants based off of their job qualifications, all on a single platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, so flipping the script to the defensive side of the ball, talking here, of course, with Kevin Knight of the Falcoholic, and we appreciate all you everydayers that make this illustrious podcast your first listen. Of course, if you want to get in on this excellent graphics game that I continually level up on each and every day on this podcast, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. But of course, you can get the audio version on your preferred podcast platform. So let's look at this front seven group of players. I have four interior defensive linemen, making it Kevin has five. The four that we agree on are Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, Taquan Graham, and Timmy Horn. That fifth guy for Kevin is Joe Gaziano, making the Falcons 53-man roster. I do project Gaziano to be on the practice squad for me. We both agree that Albert Huggins has done enough this preseason to land on the practice squad, but we differ on that last interior defensive lineman, Kevin, with Carlos Davis. I have LaCale London in that last spot. We both agree that 6 edge rushers will make the team, and agree on Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, Lorenzo Carter, Arnold Ebiketie, D'Angelo Malone, and Zach Harrison. We just disagree on that 7th edge rusher on the practice squad. Kevin has Kamoko Toure. I have Delonte Scott. At linebacker, we agree on the same 4 guys making it on the roster. That is, of course, Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson, Nate Landman, Tay Davis. We both agree that Andre Smith will probably stick on the practice squad. And I, of course, have the incomparable Mike Jones making it, as well as that 6th linebacker on the practice squad. Kevin, anything you want to explore further here?
Yeah, I mean, the guys, Joe Gaziano, one of the guys that really played a ton with the first team at training camp, because obviously Calais Campbell, I don't know what was going on with Calais Campbell. I think it, may have been like quietly veteran rest, or whatever. Because let's be honest, Calais Campbell has no business being out there. Like I think you have complete confidence in him to basically do anything you want without him having to take a snap at practice at this stage of his career. So, Joe Gaziano played all the way up and down the defensive line, played edge, played D tackle. I think that he will be signed off the practice squad. He's a guy that I think is underrated. He's barely played in the preseason. I think that tells you everything you need to know, that they're going to keep him as extra depth. And he, this is a guy that's probably going to be a game day inactive, but I think they're on the risk of losing him. They'll just hold him as opposed to someone else at an extra spot. And I think, he'll be someone that will be a key rotational player at points this season, because, we're going to have fill-ins at some point. No one's going to be 100% healthy all the time. That would be nice though. Let's see if we can do that. Albert Huggins, we both really agree on. He's been probably the most impressive of all the sort of depth D linemen playing with like third team type guys. I went with Carlos Davis, not Davis. Carlos Davis over LaCale London, because he's playing nose most of the time. And I think they just want that backup nose tackle, because they only really have Timmy Horn there. With David Onyemata can play it and has played it for New Orleans, but I think they're going to try to maximize him more as that pass rusher, 3-tech guy that's going to be opposite Grady Jarrett, playing more of those high leverage snaps and let Timmy Horn do sort of the dirty work at the 1-tech. At edge, we basically the same. I mean, you could pick whoever you want out of a hat for the practice squad there. I mean, I think Kamoko Toure has really great tape, in terms of that, but he hasn't been great for this team so far in the preseason. So, it just depends. But we know that Fontenot wanted Toure last offseason and didn't get him. So that's why I have him with the slight edge there. But I mean, it's the practice squad. It's your 7th edge rusher. So if he's getting signed to the active roster, then something terrible has probably happened. And I'd just rather not consider that anyway. And then at linebacker, yeah, we feel exactly the same. I do think there's a chance that Andre Smith can win that 4th spot if he has a really strong, I think these two will be, this is one of the ones that I think is actually up in the air going into this 3rd preseason game. Tay Davis versus Andre Smith. Andre Smith had a really good game last week. Tay Davis had a strong game in week 1. So, we'll see who comes out on top there. Both are really good special teamers. Andre Smith traditionally has been a better coverage player. Tay Davis is more of an all-rounder. But Smith had some great run stuffs in this last game. So I typically think that Andre Smith has a little bit more upside on defense. I think Tay Davis is more proven on special teams. So really just depends on what sort of flavor they want at linebacker.
Yeah, I think all of these positions are probably some of the positions that I would say guys can win a job, on Thursday night against the Steelers, right? Whether it's LaCale London or Carlos, like probably the one of those two that comes out of this game better probably will win that spot. Delonte Scott, I went with because I thought he played really well against the Bengals and made some plays against that team. And then I noticed that he has like almost an 84-inch wingspan, which is a few inches longer than Kamoko Toure. And I'm like, Ryan Nielsen is going to storm into Terry Fontenot's office and make sure that he gets that super long edge rusher like that over a guy like Kamoko Toure. So that was kind of the tiebreaker there. So I agree with you at the linebacker position. You will probably see something some potential movement there but in this final preseason game. Let's move on to the secondary as well as the special teams. And I have 7 cornerbacks making it. Kevin has 6. We agree on those 6. Kevin has AJ Terrell, Jeff Okudah, D. Alford, Trey Flowers, Mike Hughes, Clark Phillips. I do have Darren Hall making it on the 53-man roster, and I'll basically explain right now that is mostly due to not knowing what Jeff Okudah and Mike Hughes' status is going into that week 1 game and just needing an extra body potentially on the roster in the event that both of those guys are inactive come week 1. But I do think, like Kevin has, we'll probably see once those guys return to the roster, you will see Darren Hall back on the practice squad where Kevin is projecting him. We both project Natron Brooks to make the practice squad, and Kevin also has Cornell Armstrong making it on the practice squad. And the only reason I left Cornell Armstrong off of my projection is just because he hasn't played and been healthy. And so I'm like, unless he's going to play this week, I don't know if you can make the roster if you haven't played a single snap in the preseason, unless you're like Calais Campbell or somebody like that. But with the safety position, I have 5 safeties projected to make the roster. Kevin has only 4. Those 4 that we agree on are Jesse Bates, Richie Grant, Jalen Hawkins, and DeMarco Helms. I have Micah Abernathy as that 5th safety. Kevin has Abernathy as the 5th safety on the practice squad. I, on the practice squad, have Clifford Chapman making it a practice squad, mostly because the Falcons seem to love him as a dime safety. That's basically been what he's exclusively been. And like, that is notable to me that they are like exclusively using him in a specific role, which suggests to me that they probably envision him holding that role at some point in the future, maybe next year. I'm not suggesting that Clifford Chapman's going to play. Hopefully he will not play any snaps this year, because that probably means something has horribly gone wrong at the safety position. And of course, we agree on the 3 special teams players, Younghoe Koo, Bradley Pinion, and Liam McCullough. But Kevin, any thoughts at these positions?
Yeah, I mean, the question is with this group is like, Jeff Okudah, is he going to go on IR to start the season? Obviously, for those that don't know, you have to be on the active roster after final cuts. And then after that first day, then you can be placed on short-term IR. If it's before that, it's season ending, unless you do some like injury settlement nonsense like they might be doing with guys like who was the guy they just settled with? Darby, right?
Darby, yeah.
Yeah.
Felipe
So
Franks may also be in that
yeah,
boat as
exactly.
well.
So it's not necessarily season ending, but you do have to wait out the injury settlement before you can bring them back, and that's typically going to be a while. So if Jeff Okudah is going to go on week 1, short-term IR, which is absolutely a possibility. We don't really know. I mean, they've said he could be back as early as week 1. If they think he's going to be back before week 5, then they probably won't put him on IR. But if he's going on IR, they very well may hold that 7th cornerback, and then, they'll put Okudah on IR and bring someone back. I tend to think that they'll probably just like shuffle, like, what they did last year, right? Like they'll shuffle the long snapper, like cut the long snapper and bring him back or whatever. A guy that you're not worried about getting poached. And like, just so you guys know, like if they're waived, they don't get a choice. Like they have to go wherever they're claimed. If they're not waived, then they could just be like, I'm not going to sign anywhere else, but I believe Liam McCullough is still subject to waivers. So maybe not though. I feel like he actually has a strangely high number of seasons, but I think only like 1 season of actually accrued experience, because I think last year was the only year he's ever actually played on a roster for more than a handful of games.
I don't think he's hit the 4-year mark, but
yeah,
he may be closer to that number than I think probably people realize. But yeah, I don't think he's got to the year 4 where now he's no longer subject to waivers. As Kevin is referring to, that happened either last year or 2 years ago, because that's when Josh Harris was here. Because Josh Harris had been around for like 8 years. They could basically say, we are going to re-sign you. Please do not sign with anybody else. Come back to us. We just need to cut you for a day so that we can do some roster maneuvering. And they did that. Somebody else, probably not Liam McCullough. But continue your point, Kevin.
It could be somebody else. But yeah, like I think Darren Hall's probably getting signed off. Like he's probably getting claimed off waivers. So that would be a reason not, like, if you need him to play for a few weeks, then he's probably someone you can't risk putting on the practice squad. But if you're confident Okudah's coming back soon, then you maybe can afford to take the risk. At safety, I think Micah Abernathy is certainly worthy of the roster. I just, like, the math didn't work out for me to have him on there. But, it wouldn't shock me if they do keep him as the 5th safety. But I think DeMarco Helms has definitely claimed that 4th spot, like, without question. I mean, I think we were all sort of like penciling him in there early and then hoping that he would sort of, take that over, because Abernathy was in training camp playing ahead of him. Now, after these 2 preseason games, it's clear that Helms is definitely making it. Nothing on special teams is too crazy. But yeah, Clifford Chapman, again, like if, that's someone I might swap out for Armstrong if he doesn't play this week, and keep him, on the squad instead. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So I think, as we've illustrated, I think there's still a lot at stake here for this 3rd preseason game. Not probably too many roster battles, as I'm sure, Kevin, as we're looking over this, not a whole lot of movement. Maybe a couple of spots are still up for grabs. That offensive line group, I think maybe that wide receiver 5 spot, maybe a couple spots at the linebacker position and elsewhere in that front 7. But I think for the most part, this game is really going to be dedicated to a lot of guys potentially making it on the practice squad. And so I think this final game will do wonders for that. So I think this 3rd preseason game is going to be really pivotal, really, for the practice squad, where, some of these guys that we are not necessarily factoring in the practice squad, they come in and ball out against the Steelers, then maybe that will be enough to sort of push them into the conversation. Any players you want to shout out, Kevin, that you're going to be keeping an eye on Thursday night against the Steelers before we duck out of here?
Yeah, when we mentioned like Tay Davis versus Andre Smith, I think that's like one of the true legitimate ones to watch, that one of those guys could absolutely win out there. Obviously the receivers, Zay Malone, like if he has some crazy game, he's had 2 good games, obviously, and he hasn't gotten targeted like a ton, but he's made plays in both games. If he, catches like five catches for like 120 yards and a touchdown, like they have to make a decision then, because he's probably getting claimed by some really wide receiver needy team at that point. So they have to decide if they're willing to risk that or if they want to keep him. I would probably lean towards keeping him over like a 5th receiver that may not really be active most weeks, but we all know he's my son, so I'm biased in that regard. But Yeah, those are the two spots really, and then just sort of the offensive line. Like, again, it's like these guys are competing, but I do think like ultimately we're going to see someone else brought in, and then obviously hashtag Corey Davis watch going into next week. So
yeah. I think if Zay Malone had caught that pass from Logan Woodside against the Bengals, we wouldn't be having that. He would be the lock for the fifth receiver spot. But
he's teetering there.
Yeah, so, he's you know, he just needs one of that Logan Woodside magic to connect this week against the Steelers, and we'll see how that goes. But Kevin, for those of you, for those listeners that may be joining late or whatever, I don't know, go ahead and plug what you got coming up on the Falcoholic watch party on Thursday night, as well as other content that you have coming out on Falcoholic over the next few days and weeks.
Yeah, on Tuesday we had my 53-man roster projection, which you've just seen the players, but if you want to hear, my full take on it or whatever, that's on YouTube and on, all your podcast platforms as well. It's the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast on podcast platforms and the Falcoholic on YouTube. Also a written version of that is up on the falcoholic.com. Obviously we'll have our Wednesday night Falcoholic live at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then, we'll be watching the full, Falcons Steelers preseason week 3 game on our not play-by-play Falcoholic Live watch party. So if you want to come and hang out with us as we don't break down every play, but maybe talk about 1 out of 4 approximately, then we'll be doing that. So you can come and join us. It's a good time, more casual, still a lot of fun. So
yeah, you definitely got to talk about the plays out of order, so otherwise they will come for you.
Big plays only.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin, really appreciate you coming in, sharing your insight into the nitty-gritty of these roster battles. Look forward to seeing who stands out on Thursday night. For those of you that are curious on what's coming up on Locked On Falcons, we will have, I think, 2 episodes tomorrow. We will talk with Brad Spielberger of PFF about what PFF saw in that Bengals game, and I'll sort of revisit some of my negative talking points about the Falcons starters from Friday night action. And then, of course, we'll be joined by Jarvis Davis of the Locked On Sports Atlanta to preview that Steelers game and talk about which players need to earn those roster spots and what Jarvis saw last week, because you guys missed Jarvis on the postcast for Locked On Falcons. And of course, you will get that postcast with both Jarvis and I later on Thursday night after the Steelers game, when on the Locked On Sports Atlanta YouTube channel. So go check it out as your first listen. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.